Hello, and welcome to the Goddess Way interview series, where we're learning how to tap into our feminine powers to create a life of wealth, beauty, and pleasure. And today, it's my great pleasure to be with one of my dearest friends, Dana Canetto. She is both an intuitive guide and embodiment mentor. She specializes in working with sensitive and empathic women. She's the founder of Body Divinity and Revival Dance, and she teaches women how to get centered in their body to access their own power. So welcome, Dana.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah. So before we dive in, I'm just going to say a prayer and open up the energy for us. And call upon God, Goddess presence. Please anchor this space with peace, with healing light, with love, with joy, with freedom and expansion, with healing of the highest order, with a shift and opening in our consciousness so that we may embody our beautiful goddess selves in a graceful and elegant way. This or something even better for the highest good of all concerned. Okay. So Dana, your specialty is working with sensitive and empathic women, and I know I'm one of those, so I definitely appreciate the work you're doing in the world. And sometimes as being a sensitive person, it can feel like we kind of get rocked easily. So how can women get more centered and aligned in their power?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I always say, which is not the easiest thing to do, but it's to always just be with what's coming, what's arising. You know, oftentimes we want to run away from our emotions, especially as a sensitive, empathic woman. And of course, I grew up as a sensitive, empathic woman, still am. Everything I could do to run out of and get out of and away from my body. So I think the most important thing is to just be with it without judgment and really honoring and practicing the self-care and self-love in those moments. That, the reminder, we are whole in our wholeness, just as we are. And whatever is arising and coming up is there for a reason. So it's paying that.
So you're saying when something comes up for me, it's best to stay with it and not binge watch Netflix and eat ice cream.
Yeah, all the things that exactly.
Yeah.
Asking body questions, which we'll probably talk, I know we're going to go a little bit more into the body, but like asking the body questions of like, this doesn't feel so good. What's actually going on for me right now? And what is it that I need? Tending to self.
Yeah.
Right? Moving away from self.
Definitely. I love that. Like going towards instead of running away from and abandoning.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the key things for me was when I learned more about what it is to be sensitive, what that really means, rather than the connotation that we can't stand of like, oh, you're so sensitive.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So of course, who likes to be told as we're growing up, we're too sensitive? We're too of anything is not.
I got that all the time. And yes, I did not like that. Yeah.
I got it up until even my marriage, until I finally embraced that trait of mine when I learned more about it. And it being, for those, that don't know out there, there's actually something called a highly sensitive person. Dr. Elaine Aron wrote the book. But we have a higher sensory input, right? So like we feel things deeper, we notice things, we sense things, and not just physically, but emotionally, energetically, all of it. Understanding though how we can change these challenges into gifts rather than being hindrances. And there'll still be challenges coming up. A lot of sensitive people have food intolerances, like myself and stuff like that. So it's like, how can I honor myself and honor this, that my body is so graciously wise to give me the information that this is not good for my body.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so much of your work is around connecting with the body. Like, why is that so important that women connect with their bodies?
Yeah. I mean, the body is the brain. The body is it's where I believe our divinity lies, our truth. And it's, there's that quote out there, like, we are not our bodies. We're not our bodies in definition, like we're not defined by them, but our soul lives within this temple.
Mm-hmm.
The more that we can nourish our body, the more that we can embrace our body, the more that our soul can thrive in its essence.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to connect with the body is to understand the body, and again, its messages. I mean, there's always information that can be received from it. And just think about it, when you do enter into a place of self-care and nourishment, how much better you feel. Your spirit comes alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like so many times we're just like in this constant mind frame. It's almost like we're cut off from here down. And like, how can we as women even start to like sink deeper into our body, like be more embodied?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, it's not an easy answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think for most women, there is a level of support that's needed, and it could mean through a mentor or through a great group of friends that, you know, can support you in that, because it, you know, going through life, especially as sensitive and empathic, shutting down so much and learning the skills at a young age. We're so wise when we're young, you know,
Mm-hmm.
safety mechanisms for us to kind of compartmentalize ourselves in a way so that we don't feel that hurt or that pain.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with, what is it that brings you joy? What is it that brings you that aliveness in your body that you can tap into? And it doesn't mean to ignore when you're not feeling that. You know, it's like actually going in and feeling those too. Practicing that, asking questions. But in the beginning, if it really is that hard, I think it's about getting the support that you need too.
Yeah, definitely. And what can you overcome once you do tap into your body? Like how does life change at that point?
Yeah, it's so many ways. But I think what's actually coming to me that I feel drawn to talk about is the way that we can sink into suffering and victimhood.
Mm-hmm.
When things go wrong, you know, again, distracting from life, wanting to run away from challenges. But when we can give ourselves the stillness to be in our body and know that we are safe, we're fine, because it's all about security and survival, even when we have these outside forces going on. But sinking into the body, I mean, and having that connection, even in relationships, which we all have relationships. So I can start there by saying,
yeah,
in our relationships, you know, we have triggers, we have things that, you know, we can sit there and point the finger all the time at the person or argue till, you know, we're blue and
yeah.
and just have those day-to-day challenges within your relationships, but understanding, why am I having the triggers? Why am I getting upset? What is this depression I'm feeling? And also, I will say, for me and for those that are listening who are sensitive, empathic, a lot of times we're picking up stuff that's not even our own.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being able to have that discernment and understanding how to have that discernment of like, is this heavy feeling even mine?
Right.
Yeah. So it's really understanding yourself once you tap into and get close and connected to the body.
Yeah. And there's something that's coming through is like, once like I'm in my body and you're in your body, it's so much easier to be in relationship with one another, because it's like you can feel the clear boundaries of like, this is me and that's you, and that just feels safer already, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Like holding the space for each other, you're able to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And yourself, you know, once you're present, then you can do that for yourself and for others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. And personally, I can say that you've been kind of like a mentor to me with body image stuff, and just how beautifully you hold space for women to love their bodies and accept their bodies, and like truly in a non-judgmental, like honoring the goddess kind of way. So I'd love for you to share some of your wisdom with our audience.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, those that don't know me, I mean, I went through quite a battle with my own body and body image.
Yeah.
It is a struggle out there for so many women, and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is one way I am able to hold the space of non-judgment. I mean, I've gone through all different body types, fluctuations in my life, health complications that also affect women's body image. You know, there's the body image of like, what does my body look like and what does it feel like? You know, there's that feeling too of like, oh, I just don't feel good in my body. Um, it's, you know, this is kind of an obvious statement, but it's coming in right way with the body. I think the first time that I ever realized the way that I was punishing my body was understanding, it was kind of an awakening of like seeing the little girl inside of me so just torn apart of about who she was, or is, or not is, or isn't, and unworthiness. But I think what it really boils down to, what I've come to understand and realize with most women, even myself, is that it's so much more about not loving self than the actual body. But at the same time, you know, then there's the how do I want to say it? Societal standards, what we're being shown.
And what we are told sometimes.
Yeah. Or what we've incurred in our life with trauma. So depending on what angle you're coming from, you know, a lot of my work does involve somatic healing, somatic work, energy work within that. So it's really getting deep into the understanding what are actually the reasons why I am suffering in my body. Like, what is it that I'm not loving about my body? And it's learning how to honor the body as not just this body, this external thing that's defining you, but as I mentioned before, like, you know, the force, the temple, the container to your essence and to your soul, and how can I allow my soul to grow and thrive and be more in my spirit. And that's where the body transforms. That's another thing. When we start to switch our thought, you know, our mindset around our body, it does transform. There's mirror practices. I do believe in those. I know most people, it's really hard for people. That is how I started my journey with healing my relationship with my body in terms of body image. It was dancing.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about that? Like,
yes, I moved into, my grandmother had passed away. My father owned the apartment, and I moved into it. We completely redid it, and there was mirrors. The whole wall was closet mirrors, and none of the apartments were like this. My dad just decided to do this, which I thought was interesting, because that was when I had my eating disorder and all my body image issues, and I'm like,
like, the freaking mirrors. Like,
mirrors. And it was one day that, and it was when I wasn't listening to music a lot, and music was like my thing, and like that was the thing that brought me alive. But I was going through a pretty dark period, and after I had that somewhat awakening, I just started listening to different types of music again. But I literally would like, and I thought I was crazy, but I would put on like they weren't heels, but they were shoes, like with a left, maybe like wedges or something. And I would just like dance in the mirror and just be like, wow, okay, I got some moves. I'm pretty sexy. Start having that relationship with your body. And it's funny because the dance has come kind of full circle with me again now, but in a different way, in a much deeper way. But it's definitely was something that catapulted me into watching myself and watching my body and how it moves. And it wasn't easy at first. It definitely wasn't. It was just something that I didn't have a mentor at the time. All this, you know, the access that we have to people and mentors and things now is amazing. But back then, I really didn't have that. So I was kind of on my own. Just intuitively, that's what started the process.
Yeah, so that's an amazing tool for, you know, women to even start to connect with their temple and see it more of like, you know, the home of where your goddess self resides.
Completely.
Yeah.
And just to add one more thing, you know, if there's women out there that are just having, because I've went through this too, there's health complications, digestive issues, bloating, you know, I think the like phase 2 of my journey was when I was running into all the health complications and understanding how powerful the food that we eat and the environment that we're in, especially as sensitive and empathics, like how that also helped me commune and be in better relationship with my body.
Yeah, you're definitely like walking your walk with what you feed your body and how you treat your body. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely amazing resource for women who are struggling with that. And So I know you do a lot of work with your little girl self, and why is that important to embodying your goddess self?
Yeah. I love actually, now that I'm like hearing that question out loud, like I love that, because there was something that I did once that was so profoundly healing, where my goddess self met with my inner child, and it was like
Yeah.
party of like, yes, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
We all have trauma on whatever level. And, you know, trauma can be anything. It could be from, you know, being violated sexually to having somebody really yell at you when you're a little girl. You know, it's however you intake it into your body and you create meaning out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the inner child work, you know, a lot of our messages that are coming through our body, like when we feel fear, we feel anxiety, it's usually stemming from some type of trauma that you've had when you were little. So
right.
Being able to have that relationship and communicate with your inner child and understanding like, oh, my dear, I understand. I so get it that you're so sad in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you to understand, first of all, why you're sad. Like, oh my gosh, of course, this is related to that. Mm-hmm. And then you're the parent, though. You're parenting your inner child and letting the inner child know that, you know, and there's a process around this, you know. It's not always easy just to go into it on your own, but the process of inner parenting or parenting your inner child so you can have that relationship with your emotions and understanding of what's happening. But then there's also, you know, those moments where like the wild woman wants to come out and what's the fear there, right? And then it's understanding the fear with the inner child, but then it's having that, like in my meditation that time, it was like my goddess self came forward and was like, we got this, you know? And it was like, she wanted to commune with the inner child. Like, it sounds crazy, but I mean, it was like this beautiful collaboration of like three parts of me that really wanted to work together. I always go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so powerful because it's like these, I don't know, archetypes within us or strong pieces of our being that once like we befriend them and they work in harmony, it's like we can move on a way bigger level than if we were just like operating like, you know, day to day from our head, from habit.
Totally. Yeah. And then you have that to always go back to. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons, again, being still in the body, whether somebody has feelings, visualizations, they hear, there's always messages coming through and beautiful things that can happen when we just tap in and use our imagination. Mm-hmm. Really, that's what visuals are, but they're real, you know, mm-hmm. It is truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how can women kind of still feel like the goddess as they go through different transitions, like from, you know, 20s to 30s to 40s and beyond?
Oh, good question. I think it really depends on what is your deepest, I want to use the word desire, but like that doesn't feel quite right. But it's almost like what expands your life force? Mm-hmm. I feel like when I'm in my confident, embodied goddess self, it's like I'm in my life force. I can't, you know? And so it's almost like what brings you back to that. So I can even go back to times. It was always really the same thing. And it does go back to music has always been the thing that just lifts me up. Water, you know, like earth elements, like what is it that you're needing in that moment? But and I think that it's different throughout the different transitions. Mm-hmm. Life. Like I think more in my 20s, it was, and it's not all external, but it's like, what are the things, you know, it was more like the city life. It was the experiences. It was the action. It was the adventure that brought me into that like beauty, like any beauty that I'm drawn to brings me back to that space. As I get a little older, it's more like, it's just a different type of environment that I like to place myself in. That place, if that makes sense.
Definitely. It's like these external things, like they're kind of touch points back into what brings us alive.
Yeah. And if you can't get to the ocean, you know, it's like then deepening in and visualizing that or being in meditation with it or putting on ocean sounds, you know, whatever is sparking the senses, I think is a great way to tap into the goddess self.
I love that. And that's also very embodied. So yeah, like goes right back to that. Yeah. And then a lot of your work is feels very intuitive. So it's like, what's your relationship with your intuition been like?
Yeah. Oh my God. This has been huge for me. Again, such an integral part. I talk a lot about ascension in my work, which many people are going through right now, just that path of awakening and going through deep, dark soul of the moments. And, but in order to ascend, we need to descend. And it's really not easy to tap into our intuition if we're out of our body, when we're descending into the body, or maybe understanding why we're not trusting our intuition. It is a practice. But it's a practice, again, of self-trust, which there needs to be that embodiment there, and also being still enough in your body to get the information that's coming through. So depending on where somebody is on their level of, trusting their intuition or getting intuitive guidance. I mean, everybody's intuitive, but how embodied are you in order for you to feel it or to understand it or to trust it?
Yeah.
It is probably, I think the biggest challenge. It's like we all have these gut instincts or intuition, but how do we then trust it? And that's a practice. That's just, okay, I have this intuitive hit and I'm going to either say something or I'm going to like do something about it, or go that route and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a feedback. Like the more you trust that path, then it's like, oh, okay, I can do that again. Like I can trust this. It
actually becomes fun over time. Because as you're learning to trust, I mean, of course, trusting your intuition is fun. It's great, but when I see where I was when I was not very disassociated, every decision I made was based off of somebody else's thought or belief or decision.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that does lead to peace, which is the card that I pulled for you. So I pulled a goddess card and Irene came up and it said, there's no need to worry as everything is working out beautifully. So that ties into the trust as well. And she's so beautiful. Yeah. Does anything come up for you to share around peace and Irene?
Yeah. I think for many women, it's very scary to think about connecting with the body. I mean, this is just like an epidemic out there when it comes to our body. It has been for a long time. What I want to say about peace is that it is so much more peaceful when we do allow ourselves to connect. And even when I started, I remember being in a program with somebody and I was just like, I'm afraid of the silence. Like I can't sit in the silence. And they were like, just put your phone on a timer for 5 minutes, and I was like, oh, 5 minutes even, but
yeah.
The 30 seconds of like,
yeah,
being with my body and having my hand on my, solar plexus and my heart or wherever I was drawn to, I didn't want to leave. So there is so much peace when we can just tap in and be in the silence, or it doesn't have to be silent, but if you could just be still and be in the body and understand like the safety of that. So peace for me, I think, is something that not many experience, and it almost can feel like, what's wrong? Nothing's happening,
Yeah.
It's actually a very blissful place that can happen more often when we're embodied than when we're not.
I love that. It feels like peace feels like a safe harbor in your own self.
Totally.
Well, I know, everyone is on their own spectrum of being able to be present in the body versus running away. Like we all have our different thresholds. But is there like a tool or a little experience you can lead us through where we can just, even start, like open that doorway towards being with ourselves and our body?
Yeah, actually, do I have time to do like a little guided?
Yeah, I have a few minutes. Yeah.
Well, the first thing I want to say is, which is so simple. And yeah, it's so simple and it's just a matter of remembering it is maybe, for me, it works when I'm going to bed or first thing when I wake up. And again, I just started doing this intuitively, and it's something that really catapulted my healing and relationship with my body. Also, one of the things that transformed my body. I had a lot of digestive issues, and they went away. And it's when you're waking up, it's just to take your hands and literally touch every single part of your body. Your arms, your hips. You know, if you want to send love, you can send love. If that's too hard, you just feel it, like thank it, like your legs. I mean, you think about it, you see people have like broken legs or a broken ankle.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh my God, I can walk and dance.
Right. It's like you work. Thank you.
Yeah. Even if somebody, you know, if there's someone out there that does have, you know, a disability with their body, is even loving that part, you know, that part is just as lovable, you know. So I'll tell this quickly, but I remember when I was doing this, and over time I realized that I wasn't touching my stomach. And I found it interesting, because that's always been my problem area, energetically and physically. And so I started to focus more on that area. It was so uncomfortable at first. I have a lot of trauma that I store there, the sacral and solar plexus. And over time, and I've been doing this for probably 3 years now, like I have hardly if anything, I mean, you're normal, but it really has helped transform. So I think just on an energetic level, that's like a great way to tap into the body.
I love that. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or?
Well, I mean, it's within the offer, but I would also say, you know.
Yeah, please do tell us about your generous offer. It's great.
So it's kind of a funny one that didn't end up being the way I wanted it to be, but that's all perfect to me. I trust whatever happens is meant to happen. So it is a guided movement meditation. It's a soul body revival movement meditation. And I was originally going to use music, because that's how revival dance came through, and that's another process I utilized. But it wasn't working, and there was a message strongly coming through even before the music that I shouldn't be using music, because that can actually be a distraction for some people.
Okay.
Don't dance in the way that dancing could take you out of your body. If you're not doing it in the way that where you're present, where you're with yourself, if you know what I mean. Like different things out there that could potentially take you out of your body. So this is a guided meditation, all about like releasing, reclaiming your spirit, honoring yourself. I want to say it's like almost 20, something like that minutes, but that is a beautiful way, and you can even utilize it. You can turn on your own music if you want. You know, I don't guide the entire time, but I'm like asking questions and letting them feel into what they need to feel, a little talk in the beginning and stuff like that. So you do it anytime, you know, and it really might help bring women really into and understanding what they're feeling. And the last thing I'll say about this is I so believe in, as you're doing this process, because any type of healing work can be really, and you and I know this, really physically draining, emotionally draining. And I've had instances where I walked through some healing processes where I came out just having quite a few days of like a hangover and needing to like pick myself back up. And so with my work, it's something that just transformed over time, is like, no, like I want my work to be an element of joy, and for people to leave feeling embodied and joyful, and like their life force has just been like catapulted. The movement is like that too, you know. It can be deep, it can be heavy, but in the end it's always tapping into the essence of who you are, the divinity of who you are, which is what body really is.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm excited to check out that guided meditation, and also I really love the practice that you shared about just feeling your body, and I could relate to, you know, like kind of glossing over my stomach and like, definitely a lot hiding. Well, I guess, you know, just a lot present there. So Very
For most of us, many of us, and especially sensitive, empathic, because that's where our power center is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where our core solar plexus, where, we could get a blow to it when we're so young, and it takes a long time to heal. So
yeah. So what a beautiful, like, loving, honoring way to connect back into your own power. So yeah. So thank you so much, Dana. It's been such a pleasure to interview you, and thank you for your blessings and insights.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me, and just love being in this space with you. So.
Absolutely. Well, to our viewers, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.